is Joan Bergeron-Thomas, and I am the proud board president of Journeys to Change. Journeys to Change is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that curates immersive experiences to historic sites in the struggle for civil and human and labor rights. Through travel to places like Montgomery, Selma, and Birmingham, Nashville, and Charlottesville, as you heard Dale mention, through walking tours in Manhattan of the Lower East Side and Five Corners, and right here in Westchester at the African American Cemetery in Rye.
Fun is where you find it.
We're going to have one swing at time at Glen Echo, the amusement park in Washington.
Glen Echo Amusement Park.
This park is segregated. You're not trespassing. Can I ask your race?
My race, I belong to the human race.
Oh, we were dying to get in there.
I really wanted to ride on the carousel. Why couldn't we go and have fun like everybody else?
We were some bold people.
I knew there was something better for me.
We wouldn't let our kids come to Glen Echo because not everybody could come.
We are Americans too. We support this country. We love this country.
The Holocaust radicalized me.
The fight for civil rights is much my fight as it is theirs.
That was the first time I had any social contact with a white person.
White people feel it would really be totally wrong morally for young white girls to be bumping hips in a swimming pool with teenage Negro boys.
I was surprised because the majority of the people picketing were white.
Whose picket line is this?
A group of demonstrators have just marched through the gate.
Got on the merry-go-round.
And into a restaurant here.
Then the brown shirts showed up. I would be picketing while there are these people here whom I fled.
They said, "What are you doing here, you nigger? You want to die?"
And the guy spit on me.
Spit right in her face. She just looked straight ahead and kept on walking.
Last night's group was the largest number of demonstrators.
Congressman Adam Clayton Powell,
Stokely's first picket line.
A. Philip Randolph, and Roy Wilkins joined the picket line.
Glen Echo gave me my baptism.
It dramatically changed my life.
Be sure to be at Glen Echo during the last week of the season.
Glen Echo Amusement Park.
One more time, gang.
Glen Echo Amusement Park.
Well done documentaries that I've ever had the pleasure of watching. So thank you for making like at the rabbi, I too was experiencing a torrent of emotions. Watching the film for the second time, and more directly to the question, the history that I was able to make, being the first person of color to represent the 17th congressional district, none of that would have been possible absent, without the civil rights achievements of organizers like who we just watched, my multiracial coalition, a multiracial, multi-religious, multi-ethnic coalition.
Well, I grew up about 20 minutes away from what is now the national park, that is Glen Echo Park. And when I was a child, it was kind of an arts colony with a decaying amusement park on it. And the roller coaster tracks were there. There was other just like detritus of rides, and the shooting gallery was there. You could see the gears and the ducks. And the colors were just smacked by that. I was so shocked that the park had been whites only, and that I had been ignorant. I mean, really, like in the truest, like cruelest sense of that word, ignorant. Because I was looking at those pictures. I had looked at those pictures my whole childhood, and it had just never registered to me that in those pictures was only white people. And growing up in the area where I knew that there were communities of color, that meant that if there were only white people in the picture, doing the math, that meant that there were people who couldn't come in. And just kind kind of, this dawning awareness that I had been idealizing something that for some people was a wonderland, and for other people was a source of incredible exclusion and pain and cruelty, really. That was what motivated me to get started working on the film, because I knew that I was not unusual and most of us didn't know this story. But also, once I started learning about Bannockburn, my father had been a Jewish labor organizer, and I first started filming actually 2 years after he passed away, and it was like this sense that I was still talking to him because the people of Bannockburn were so familiar to me. The things that they said were like my dad's lingo, and that was kind of another just a nice melody that was like playing in my head as I was still talking to my dad.
Because you needed to feel like it was like a complete story.
It took 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 2014 to 2024.
Okay. Was there some testimonies that were like particularly hard to find? Some information you just.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to be so curt in my answer. So part of the reason that it took so long, there's really 3 reasons. Number one is that, this was kind of lost history. There was definitely some people, and it was reported on, some people who knew about it was reported on, but it wasn't ever earmarked, in the course of just archives being put together. You couldn't type in the index, Glen Echo protest, and then actually anything would come up, right? So a lot of it was just finding things for the very first time that had never been cataloged at all, and finding things through great miracles of luck. But also, fundraising for this film was hard. That took a long time. And then finally, the editing was really, really hard. Partially just because it's a very complicated story, but also because I was really committed to transporting the viewer to the moment of 1960 and not making it like a retrospective film of let's look back on 1960. I wanted the viewer to feel like they were in 1960, and so there's no one in the film who wasn't there. And there's no omniscient narrator who's telling you, and then this is what happened. So all the exposition is coming either from the people themselves or published accounts that were contemporaneous. And so that makes those accounts and those people have to do a lot of work, and we have to kind of just massage it all so that it flows and so that it makes sense, because history doesn't always make sense. But in terms of testimonies, the people who were the featured characters in the film, once I found them, they were very eager to talk, mostly because they had never talked about it before, because no one had ever really asked them. Many of them, like Hank and Dion, certainly went on to much more famous acts of resistance. But Glen Echo, for everyone, including them, held this place in their heart because it was so formative. It was so early. It was the first time that they interacted with white people, or it was the first time, that a young mother decided to stand up and, bring her children to the picket line, or the first time that Lauren Weinberg defied his parents and went to the picket line. But there were some people, one person in particular, who I literally stalked for 3 years. He's I don't think he would mind that much. It's Marvis Saunders, he is the person in the iconic photograph of the man who's on the carousel. He has glasses and he's interacting with the cop. And that's the picture, and so I had to get him, absolutely had to get him. But, he became a dermatologist, and he lives in Orange County, and he showed up on that page. Orange County, California. He was on that picket line for maybe 2 days and got arrested and never went back. And didn't tell his family about it, and his children didn't know about it, and didn't want to talk about it. And probably voted for the person that you were just railing against.
It does live in Orange County.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, so after, and it got to a point where, like, I knew the receptionist in his cabinets, and I'd be like, you have no idea about Dr. Saunders. Let me just tell you. And I would like send her the picture, and I was like, will you please tell? Will you please tell? And then finally, I just wrote him this long, impassioned, like, handwritten snail mail letter about why I needed to talk to him, and he was like, okay. And then when I showed up with the camera crew, he had his children and his grandchildren there. So yeah. Well, the art came out of, I guess, like most creative things, it came out of a problem. Like, I had a problem. And the problem is that I was trying to transport people, and I was trying to really create a primary text without having enough material. And, you know, I don't, you know, when Hank is talking about showing up at Howard, or when Helene talks about having an African-American child come to her school, like, obviously I didn't have that footage. And I don't feel right about kind of pulling one over on the audience by doing a recreation, which is, you know, kind of a typical practice, or, you know, substituting somebody else in there for that. And I didn't want to, like, use like true animation, which is a popular technique right now, because that would really pull you out of the story. So I wanted to keep you in the story, but at the same time signal to the audience, this isn't the real footage. Like, you know, lest you think somebody was there filming Dion breaking into the library. And I also wanted to evoke the slippery quality of memory, and how, you know, it's actually not accurate, and it's blurry, and things may loom large that actually weren't necessarily large. I mean, that's why, like, in the piece where you see, like, the dancing between, like, the NAG kids and the kids from Bannockburn, you know, things are like floating in and out of the ceiling, because, like, that's sort of like it has that sense of dream-like, the way that people reflect on it. So that was why it took a while to, like, artistically to find that, you know, that particular touch of it. But I always had it in my mind that that's what I was going for. Thank you.
It's so important to have conversation and also to share stories. I'm just wondering what the future of this is, and hopefully there's a future.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, so between the, like, industry distribution landscape and this, you know, upside down socio-political landscape, there's not really a playbook, right, for how one distributes a film like this. I don't think it's going to end up in theaters in any big way, partially because documentaries just aren't, you know, nobody's picking up documentaries. So it's, like, limited, like, here and there, where, like, I'm screening in Washington, D.C. at the Independent Avalon Theater for one night. I'm doing one night at the WCC in Manhattan. Please tell your friends, April 29th. Oh yeah, so it's been in film festivals. It's been in about 30 film festivals. And typically, one would go on the festival circuit for a year and then start to release it educationally. But because of where we are politically, I've conflated that. So I just feel like we don't have any time to wait, and we need it in the schools now, while we still are allowed to teach the civil rights movement. So I'm concurrently fundraising in order to create a 56-minute version of the film that schools can use. I've been doing a lot of piloting with schools, private schools, in Montgomery County, where this takes place, basically grades 6 through 12. You know, even, like, it's interesting, like, asking the kids, like, so what do you think about, like, the language that's in the film? Like, that is problematic. Do you think that we need to, like, use beeps when there are offensive racial slurs? You know, and how, you know, what the kids say. And also, you know, we're just licensing it to all different kinds of groups. So it's been really interesting to me, like, The Washington Conservatory of Music is holding a screening, and the Park Planning Commission, and a lot of times at a festival, like I was at the St. Louis International Film Festival, and a city councilman from the city of Florissant decided to license the screening to show like all municipal employees of Florissant. There might only be 10, but still, you know. So, and actually one thing that's really cool in the DC area, this I'm really excited about, there's an organization called Operation Understanding, and it is like a selective training program for 11th graders that you have to apply for. And I think they have like 20 Black and 20 Jewish, and like probably some that are both Black and Jewish. And those kids spend a year together going on civil rights trips, going to Holocaust museums, learning about each other's heritages, and like really being forced to be together in relationship, in dialogue. And then they get trained as discussion guides in their respective communities. So I'm actually working with them to train them to be discussion facilitators in schools, and now Glen Echo Park is actually trying to get grants to build a permanent exhibition about what happened there, and to have like an excerpt in a kiosk. And when groups like your group come to Glen Echo, that then those kids can come together and be the docents, like give the tours.